I want to talk to you now about what position you should put your baby in when you lay your baby down to sleep. Now, I am not giving medical advice, so I just want to explain the rationale and you can make your own decision. Now, as you probably have seen and heard and read, presumed studies have shown that babies who die of SIDS are most commonly on their stomach, and so it's recommended that we always put babies on their back. Now, let me just say about studies, you can find a study that says anything that you want it to say if you're looking for a study to justify your reasoning for doing something. As a matter of fact, there are some entities who will actually create a study with the end result that they want. And I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but I am saying that we should use our own common sense. Just because someone is a medical professional, or even some entity is a medical professional, that doesn't mean that we should blindly follow their advice. We need to use our own common sense. Now, here's an example of how medicine has changed even over the last few years, and I say few years, in my lifetime of having children. When I was having babies, the recommendation was that you supplement babies with a bottle of water, and even sugar water, because they need hydration in addition to the breast milk. Only a few years later, it was decided that that was wrong advice, that we should not be giving babies water, and that's because they can actually choke on water. So we stopped giving bottled water, and we for sure stopped giving sugar water. Now, if we give sugar water at all, it's in a very small amount, and we have to have a justifiable reason to do so. So that's an example of how medicine has changed, and a good example of why we need to think things through for ourselves. Now, having said all of that, babies are created with the same anatomy as we as adults are. We all started out as babies. We have the same anatomy. Now, the muscles aren't as strong because the baby just came out of the womb and had to be in a kind of a curled up position. So their spine is soft, their muscles are soft. Everything needs to develop even after they've been born. So as we all know, a baby cannot roll over at this age. Now, if you were an adult, and you are adult, I'm sorry I said it that way, you are an adult. If you were an adult who was not able to turn yourself over, let's say you're in the hospital and you are not able, for whatever reason, to turn yourself over by yourself. First of all, we would not put you flat on your back. We would have you in an elevated position because we know that it's not safe to have you flat on your back. But if you were an adult and you were flat on your back and you could not roll yourself over, if you started to vomit, let me back up. Let's just say you could roll yourself over, but let's say you're flat on your back and you start to throw up. What would you do for yourself without even thinking? And I want you to think now. I'm going to stop for a couple seconds. I want you to think. If you started to throw up and you're laying flat on your back without even thinking, instinctively, what would you do for yourself? Okay, have you had time to think on that? I think the answer, we all have the same answer. Instinctively, you're going to roll over so that you can throw up. You're not going to lay on your back. You will sit up if you can, but you will definitely pull yourself to a position where you can roll over and throw up. Okay, this baby cannot do that. Now, babies do like to be swaddled. So when we put them to bed, this is okay for them to be swaddled and put to bed. But if the baby starts to throw up, she's going to be in a bind. She's going to be in a situation. If I have the baby in the nursery and she starts to throw up, let's say she's in the bassinet, flat on her back, she starts to throw up. Am I going to just leave her in that position? Absolutely not. I'm going to run over. I'm going to pick her up. hold her by her chin so that I can support her head, and let her get that out. Now, if she can't get it all out, then I'm going to hurry up and get her out of the blanket so that I can help her by patting her, but I'm going to get her out of the blanket, and I'm still going to support her head, but I'm going to get her out of that blanket very quickly. After that, if I see any mucusy stuff in her nose or in her mouth, I'm going to use the bulb syringe to help her to get that out. But the first thing is to get her up and over. Now, if she's flat on her back like this and mom or dad is sleeping, who's going to do that? As a matter of fact, if I'm a nurse and if I have a baby in the nursery with me and I fall asleep, I would get fired because, number one, I'm not supposed to sleep when I'm working, but the other reason is because this baby is never supposed to be left unattended, unobserved. And yet, in a baby-friendly hospital, we think it's okay to put the baby in the bedroom or in the hospital room with the mom and dad when they are dead tired and haven't slept for hours, and sometimes the mom has had a C-section or her legs are still numb and she can't get up. But we think it's okay to put the baby next to her to where she can't even reach the baby. And she or dad might be both in a deep sleep. And who's going to hear that baby and pick that baby up if the baby starts choking? We are putting these babies in a dangerous situation when we do that. It makes common sense that if a baby is choking, and babies do burp, and then they get a mouthful of vomit, and it does not make sense to leave them flat on their back. Now, if you want to put your baby flat on her back, like is recommended, that's okay, but she should always be observed so that if she starts to throw up, you can pick her up and turn her over. So what happens when you go home with the baby? You have to sleep, okay? You have to sleep. Moms and dads have to sleep. Now, one thing that is very helpful is to get a monitor. My daughter had this for her baby, to get a monitor in the bed so that the monitor would go off if the baby stops breathing. That's very helpful. But I'm going to tell you what we used to do in the hospitals and what I have done at home when I had my babies. I didn't understand about swaddling when I was having my babies, but I did wrap them up and I did a decent job of it. And I didn't have one of those pretty bassinets that you put in the bedroom and the baby's in the bassinet, but I did have one of those strollers that lays down into a bed and also raises the back up. And so I would use that stroller and I would put my baby in an upright, semi-upright position with her back against the side of the stroller and a towel roll right here so that she would not roll over. And we used to actually do that in the hospital. The bassinets in the hospital, they're little plexiglass or plastic tubs, and the actual tub will raise up like this. And we used to do that all the time until somebody decided that we should not do that, even though the cribs are made with that capability on purpose. Then somebody decided that we should not do that. So if it was me, though, I would raise the bassinet this way, and I would put the baby on her side so that if she spits up, it's going to go into her cheek or out of her mouth, or she'll at least be able to swallow it easier. And I would put a towel roll right here. We used to do that all the time as nurses until somebody decided that that was wrong. So anyway, if I was at home doing putting my baby in the bassinet, that's what I would do. Now, babies do like to be on their stomachs. In the ICU, for the neonatal ICU, we have put babies on their tummy and they get nice and calm. Babies like to be swaddled, first of all, but when they're in the isolettes in the hospital, they can't be swaddled because they're on monitors, and they are very fussy when they're not swaddled. So we turn them over, put them on their tummy. They got some pressure on their tummy. It makes them feel good. It also takes care of that flight reflex that makes them not want to sleep because they need to have some boundaries. They need to feel like they're up against something. And so being on their tummy, they really do seem to like it better that way. Now, you cannot put your baby on her tummy if she's swaddled. That's the problem. If you put her on her tummy like that, that's not good. That's a bad place to be. So don't ever do that. But if you decide to put your baby on her tummy, put some clothes on her so she doesn't need to be swaddled. She'll be nice and warm. Put her on her tummy. And again, in most cases, you're going to be observing her just like you would observe her if she was on her back. But this way, she's in a different position. If you wanted to go to bed and put her on her tummy, get that monitor. That's what I suggest. Okay? Now you notice I've got this baby propped on her side. If I had a towel roll, I would put it right here if it was a real baby, and I would elevate her up like this with the bassinet. I hope that helps someone. Again, I'm not giving medical advice, but I just want you all to think this through, and you are the parent. And by the way, I do suggest that every parent take a CPR class so that you know how to rescue your baby if she does choke, or if you find her unconscious, or if she's got food in her throat. You as a parent need to know what to do. I hope that helps you. Please click like and share.